Hi, Dr. Yass here. This video is actually not for lay people who are suffering from chronic pain. I am actually reaching out to medical practitioners who might be interested in learning more about the Yass method if they're finding that the educational background they've been provided or the experiences they have had might not be achieving the goals that they're looking for, and they're looking to find some alternative other than what has been taught up to the point that they might just be dissatisfied in how things are going. They don't feel that they're getting the most out of what they can, and their patients really aren't achieving the levels of success in resolving their symptoms and returning them into full functional capacity, so they might be looking for an alternative. Now, what's been fascinating for me and very, very exciting is the fact that over the last year or so, since my second book came out and I did a PBS special, I think there's been a tremendous more awareness created of the Yass method, and it has led many, many people to contact me, want to be treated, and actually medical professionals of all type, chiropractors, physical therapists, nurses, massage therapists, primary care physicians have all contacted me. And they're trying to get more information about the Yass method, what's so different about it, why does it seem that it's having the level of success that it's having? And so it's made me recognize that as much as I believe that part of my path is to speak directly to people who are suffering, because I think that it is possible for them to understand the general principles behind the Yass method and what is wrong with the existing model. And therefore, I think they're in a position to be able to address their symptoms in a way that they can have them resolved and return to a great quality of life. But certainly, the ability to get the Yass method entrenched in the medical system or outside the system, which is just as well for me, but to have as many medical practitioners endorsing and utilizing it certainly would speed up the process in what I'm really looking for, which is the basic replacement of the MRI and diagnostic test as the primary mechanism for identifying the cause of pain versus the Yass method, which, as far as I know, is the only method that actually utilizes an interpretation of the body's presentation of symptoms to identify what tissue is eliciting the symptoms, which is basically the way the body has actually designed itself. So generally, we could look at the idea that if people are having pain at the left chest and left arm, they immediately recognize that specific symptom to represent a specific tissue in distress, meaning the heart. And we could go along and look at that. Well, when we're talking about the neck, the back, or the extremities, it's basically the same thing. The presentation of symptoms will allow for the proper tissue to be identified. If we accept the idea that pain is nothing more than a release of a signal to create conscious awareness of distress of a tissue, then in properly diagnosing the tissue, the proper treatment can be provided, and the distress of the tissue resolved, thereby no longer needing the distress signal to be released, and then pain simply ceases. So I think people are starting to catch on to this idea, and it's making sense. And one of certainly the other core principles about the Yass method that I think are really catching on is the idea of having a theoretical basis why people are even having pain. And that is to say that we live in a gravity environment. And as a result, we're trying to perform functional tasks on a daily basis. And the forces of the muscles that are required to perform these activities have to be equal to or greater than the forces of gravity. And if all the muscles that are trying to perform the activity are not strong enough and do not have enough force output in relationship to the force requirements of the activity, those muscles will break down, elicit pain, or cause another muscle to break down and elicit pain. And here's the one that I don't think most people understand. Those muscles are attached to the joint surfaces that make up the joints of the body. So if there's weakness or imbalance of muscles that are attaching to joints, then the joint surfaces themselves will become misaligned and rub in a way they shouldn't. And that's what elicits pain in joints. In the vast majority of cases, we can show that the reason the individual is having pain at the joint, especially something like the knee, around the kneecap, is because there's weakness or imbalance of the muscles that attach to the joint. The joint surfaces are becoming misaligned, leading to irritation and pain. The alternative model is that structural variations such as meniscal tears, arthritis at the back, herniated disc, stenosis, all these things are the cause, and therefore treatment of the structural variations is the answer versus muscle. Well, if you can just step back for a second, let's talk about the theoretical basis of the use of the MRI, and that is that an individual is having a symptom, a diagnostic test is taken, a structural variation is found, and therefore a correlation is made. The herniated disc that's identified, or stenosis, or a meniscal tear, that is the cause of the pain because the MRI found the structural variation at the time the pain was existing. And if you notice, the MRI is generally performed while the individual's in pain. What you have to recognize is that this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, so that since the MRI is done when the person's having pain, if the structural variation is found, then that must mean it must be causing the pain. My point to everybody is that think about this premise. If for some reason there was an opportunity to go back in time, the person's pain began 2 weeks ago. If I could have taken an MRI 2 weeks and a day ago, or 2 weeks and 2 months, or 3 months, or 6 months, what would the MRI result be in relationship to today? And the answer would be exactly the same. And the reason is because structural variations are slow and progressive in nature. They take years to develop and progress. Therefore, the idea that pain today was caused by a structural variation, and that pain is 2 weeks ago, to imply that 2 weeks and 1 day ago that structural variation would have been found if an MRI was taken, is simply irrational. It doesn't make any sense. And that's probably one of the first steps that led me to say, wait a second, this just doesn't make sense. When I came to this thought about, well, the MRI is always taken when an individual's in pain. What if this MRI was taken, the diagnostic test was taken before the pain began? And it suddenly hit me. The MRI result was going to be exactly the same. So how could I possibly associate the pain to the structural variation being found on the MRI? This has actually been looked at by some studies that were done on individuals who had no pain at the time an MRI was taken. And going back to 1994, 70% of people who have no back pain were found to have bulging or herniated discs. More recently, a study showed over the age of 60, those who do not have back pain, 90% were found to have bulging or degenerative discs. Clearly, structural variations exist outside of pain. It's independent. One study showed that 63% of the population who have knee pain have meniscal tears. 60% of the population who have no knee pain have meniscal tears. There is just overwhelming evidence structural variations do not cause pain. And it is this self-fulfilling prophecy that was created over 3 decades ago, which has led to the idea that the only true way to identify the cause of pain is through the use of diagnostic tests. And the results have been staggeringly poor. I mean, everybody, I would hope, who's in the medical field, who's open to the idea, would recognize that treatment based on this system has been a complete failure. The number of people suffering from chronic pain has skyrocketed. The cost of treating chronic pain went from $70 billion to $635 billion in just 9 years. 22 million people addicted to prescription pain medication. I mean, it's clearly a failure. So what I am hoping is that those who get to hear this video and see this video, who have recognized something's just not right but haven't been able to come to the realization as to what it is might be open to looking at a different way of diagnosing and treating pain, which is this interpretation of symptoms, which is based on a global premise that most pain is due to muscle weakness or imbalance as a result of the inability to perform functional tasks. I think you would see that when looked at, the understanding of this method would probably fit the set of symptoms the individual was having, their association of their symptoms to an inability to perform functional tasks, and I think that given the opportunity, you would see that this makes a lot more sense. So basically, this is a shout out to any medical practitioner. Lately, over the last year, I should say, it's been fantastic. I'm getting contacted from chiropractors, physical therapists, nurses, massage therapists, primary care physicians. I really think people are grasping this idea, but we need to join together cumulatively. The only way the existing medical model is ever going to be ended is by replacing it. It will not stop. That's obvious. 30 years this has been going on. The use of the MRI was created without any kind of scientific evidence. It was simply implemented. The failure rates in every respect, there is nothing indicating that this system is working properly, and yet it will continue to persist. I want to open the dialogue to all medical practitioners who sense that there's something wrong and are looking for an alternative that makes sense, which is scientifically, theoretically, and clinically sound, and can be applied by any medical practitioner, regardless of your credential. My goal is to not look at things from a splintered point of view. I'm looking to unify, and not unify based on a particular credential. I want to unify based on a solid, logical, a method that has been time-tested for over 2 decades, and get everybody to simply, you can call yourselves practitioners. As far as I'm concerned, we can call it anything we want, as long as everybody is working with the same understanding, the same capacity to be able to diagnose and resolve symptoms quickly and return people back to their lives. That is my goal. So if you think this might be right for you and you want some more information, by all means, you can go to my website, which is www.mitchellyass.com, mitchellyass.com. You can go to my YouTube page. I think there's about 30 or 35 videos there now at Dr. Mitchell Yass. The Facebook page, the same thing. I've even put about 10 podcasts on a website called SoundCloud. There's just multiple ways of getting the information. I have 2 books, Overpower Pain and The Pain Cure RX. I really am trying to make this information as available as possible. What I've started to do recently is for medical practitioners who are interested in learning, performing lectures, 1 to 2 hour lectures for facilities, or in some cases, I've been contacted by individuals, and allowing you on a direct basis to be able to get the information, ask questions, and see if we can create an understanding that basically it incites you to want to use the method. So any way you want to reach me, I'm great with that. If you just want to contact me through email, you can do that through drmitch@mitchellyass.com. That's drmitch@mitchellyass.com.